Thank God for Verizon. Or T-Mobile.
T-Mobile. I can actually, here, let me see if I can actually get this down a size. Oh, there it is. Is that better?
Better.
Let me try one more time.
Actually, that's exactly the same.
Yeah, it is exactly the same. But this is better. Oh, this is not what I want to show you though. Basically, the best way to find out about Git is put Git in Google, right? Just like everything else. Actually, that was pretty fast. Wow. All right. So actually, the first link that you get is actually the home page for Git. And to be quite honest with you, that's probably the best resource at the very beginning. And so what's really cool about Git is now at this point, Git started development in 2005. Now we're 5 years later, it's things are a lot better. It used to be very difficult to use, but now you can go ahead and download packages that install Git on your system. And so there you have it right there. On your right-hand side, select your poison. Hopefully it's one of the last two. But it actually works fairly well on Windows, right? And these are installers. They'll go ahead and install Git on your system, and you'll be ready to go. And mind you, this is all from the command line. How many of you guys are comfortable at the command line level? All right. There are nowadays I know for Windows like ways to integrate it into Explorer. So it's more like some of these really nice Subversion systems, how they integrate, where basically it's integrated into Explorer, so you never actually have to run any commands. You just right-click here and there, and you just add files, and things happen automatically. And actually here, there you go. There is a list of projects that use Git for their management. Ruby on Rails is a big one. Obviously the Linux kernel, of course. I didn't know Perl. Wow. PostgreSQL. Actually, there's a really interesting article that came out like literally 2 days ago, where PostgreSQL they went ahead and finally migrated to Git, and it's a little bit of a story, the difficulty in migrating from Subversion to Git. So you may be interested in that. And actually, may have been CBS to Git, which would have been bad. And so once you have that installed. Don't mind that. Let me show you just how easy it is. Actually, I don't want to go there. I'll actually go to a project that is actually not in a Git directory already. So this is some stuff that I have for this graduate programming, the programming languages course, and I went ahead and listed the directory right here. Those are 2 files, and they have some code. I can go ahead and show you what's in them basically. Here's like a last project. This is using Clojure when I implemented LCW encryption. You basically take a file and you encrypt it, not encrypt it, sorry, compression, and you compress it down to something that's much smaller, right? And this is a perfect example where I wasn't even using Git at this point because I was just hacking, but stuff started getting a little complicated. I'm like, at some point I better actually make a Git repo, right? And actually start using it. So, I don't know why I just did that, but I did. So I'm going to go ahead and in this, I'm going to go ahead and make the whole folder that represents all my homework for that class a Git repo. Done. That was it. So when you run Git, you have all these commands, right? And the idea is once you have a directory and you actually initialize the Git repo, you can add files and you can commit them, right? Obviously, you can find out if there's anything going on, right? So if I do git status, for example, right, it'll show that there are untracked files. That's basically there's data that exists in the directory of the repository, but actually have not been added to the repository. So what I could do here is just add all those files. I put a dot to recursively go down this list and actually add all that information, right? Which it did. It took a while because I actually have a huge PDF in there. And then I can run git status again, and then it shows me all the data that's actually ready to be committed. And these are all the files in all those directories. And so what I will do is do git commit, right? And then here I would say, this is VI, by the way. You can change this to be whatever text editor you want. You know, first commit, array. Oh dear goodness. Can anyone remember how to get out of here?
Escape, shift, colon. Shift, colon, Q. Q.
Yeah, I want to quit with this saving though.
WQ.
Yeah. There you go. So it created all these nodes that represent all this data. The cool thing, even though it appears that Git is keeping track of the files, it actually keeps track of the data within the files. So hypothetically, if I were to take a function in one file and actually just move it to another, it just keeps track that I moved the function, not that I changed the files, which is a particularly powerful thing that things like Subversion definitely do not do. And also the history of the repository it represents the whole repository. You know, in these other systems, the history is actually attached to individual files. So once you kill the file, all that history is gone, right? And so we can go back to Git, and I can actually do git log, right? And it actually gives me information of my first, commit, right? And the cool thing is this commit has an identifier, right? So then when you start talking about things like wanting to go back to a version of the code, right, that didn't suck, right? Or perhaps you want to share a certain commit with another person, that's how you do it. You know, you start talking about, actually sending this commit information to one another. And then you can actually merge individual commits. You can merge a whole tree of commits. You can actually branch. And that's a topic that I didn't want to.
For maybe people who never use repositories, can you tell them the difference between add and commit?
Oh yeah, sure. When you're adding, you are basically telling the repository to start watching it. So eyes on me, right? I actually want for you to start keeping track of this file, right? Because it could very well be that maybe you have some configuration file for Eclipse that you don't want to keep track, right? And Git actually has a little file where you can tell it, there's certain things you want it to ignore. Like your Eclipse project info is a perfect example of things that you should ignore, right? Because that changes in between boxes, right? And so when you add a file, you're basically telling Git that you want it to be tracked. So you only ever have to add a file once, right? And the commit actually goes through the list of files that you have that are being tracked and sees what changes have been made to those files, and then it saves those. Everyone get that? All right. Well, this is no fun. How much time? Oh, we don't have much time left.
About 10 minutes.
All right. So I'll skip you the boredom of actually showing you very huge trees of this and whatnot. And that's the main thing. Is this is my homework. This is two things of homework, and I just made a Git thing of Bob. Let me just really quick just to show you, I can't spell. I changed that file. Now if I do git status again, it tells me that file is modified, right? Changed but not updated. And that's the cool thing about Git is it's pretty descriptive, right? And at that point I'll just commit. Did I commit it? change? I'm not doing this. Oh goodness, what did I do? No. So another. There we go. And then you have this history of stuff that, those are very simple changes, obviously, but once you start getting big, you start keeping track. Obviously, you want these things to be descriptive, right? And it also has the information too, so the information of who did it and when they did it. So obviously, in a collaboration environment, you'll need to know that information. But let me show you where GIT became extremely popular, extremely quickly.